see there were like a couple of unfair advantages you had because the niche that you were exploring was a gold mine, first of all. And at the same time, there were not many who had proven their products or services to that extent. So I think it was a little bit of an unfair advantage that you had at that time. But at the same time, as I said, like the complex problem that you were solving was really a complex problem at that time that existed, and everybody was kind of experimenting.
So if you say, hey, I don't like to sell, well, you're gonna have a sales problem. I don't like to deal with the accounting, you're gonna have a problem getting paid. Because you're not, at all the parts of you that you can avoid in real life, if I go get a job and I program, I don't have to worry about any of this. I never have to develop that part of me.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have a business and you're gonna do this, you have to develop all the parts of you that you don't want to develop. So I always said it was like surfing, because there's a wave coming. If you get up too soon, it's not going to work. And if you miss the wave, so you can be a little bit early, but you can never be late. But you can't be way early either. There were technologies.
Owning a data center is not a joke. It requires a huge capital. So can somebody build that kind of a business? Bootstrapping is a question.
Marty Puranik turned a dorm room startup into a global cloud infrastructure company. As founder and CEO of Atlantic.Net, he's built decades of trust by staying ahead of tech trends, long before they became mainstream.
Namaskar. Welcome to Passionate Pulse podcast. Today is an exciting day because I'm sitting in the PayPal Park Stadium where actually I did the coin toss, and the community behind me, or somebody who really vouched for me to be here, and even today sitting in this press room, is a very much prestigious moment in my life that I'm witnessing. And all the credit goes to Atlantic.Net and the Marty, or the Manoj Puranik, who is the CEO of this company, the founder of this company, which is over 2 decades, have pivoted many a times, and in the infrastructure doing a phenomenal job, starting with the ICC computers, the internet-based or web hosting, and from there moving to data centers to what we see is a cloud hosting platform, is a big shift that the Atlantic.Net has achieved. And we are talking to Manoj Puranik about all the nuances that went behind since 1994 till today, the profitable business that we look forward to without raising the venture capital, and solely based on their own revenue, they kept pivoting and innovating. So I think it's an interesting story because it's a more or less 2 decades old story that we are looking forward and witnessing. Most of us didn't know what was that time the engineers looked like, what they did, how they innovated, and starting with the college camps, how somebody can really have that kind of a business. So it's a very interesting story we are looking forward to. So, Marty, welcome to this show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. And hopefully it'll be a great conversation.
Yeah, we will. So help me understand, like back in the 90s, when you were like learning and studying as an engineering student, what really made you start something on your own? I mean, I've heard some stories from your marketing people and sales people, but it's in a dorm you started something with your friend Jose, and how did it move?
So we met in college, and obviously we had exposure to internet, and we thought it was going to be amazing, which ultimately it has been, right? It's changed a lot, and the industry's changed a lot. But at that time, internet, nobody knew what it was. We thought it was going to become something big. So at that time, internet was very restricted to college students. If you were getting your master's degree, if you were just a general college student, you couldn't get internet access, and it was controlled in fiefdoms. So it was very, very restricted, and we wanted to democratize that. So we actually tried to set up a public access internet for the students. Wow. And we had it running for a little while, and then it got shut down because there was concerns about it being a security risk or who's going to be responsible for it. So we spoke, and we said, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen with or without us, so this is the time to go. So we decided to do it, and it's an amazing story because it's so improbable. We had so many things break our way that kept us going, that if those things didn't happen, maybe we wouldn't be here. So we didn't have any capital, so we built and sold computers for the first year. I knew how to do that. And so I told Jose we could do that. And so we opened a small computer store. And I learned a lot about selling. One of the neat things is whenever you try things, you're always learning something.
Yeah.
So I learned to sell. I learned to work with customers because I was, we were both engineers. So
Right.
we didn't have that. We didn't know how to do that. Right? We knew how to code. We knew how to, build machines and things like that. But we didn't know, selling and margins and all these different things. So that was the first year, and we did some horse trading for internet access with another group of people that were in a nearby town. So that's how we got our internet access, because at that time it was really expensive.
Yeah.
But we were trading services. We got internet service from them and used our labor, and we got online, and we got it going from there. So we started one city, and then we gradually expanded, and it was exciting at that time. The big, there was always a company that was going to kill us. It was going to be AOL, then it was going to be AT&T, then it was going to be cable, then it was going to be whatever, satellite. And so as we went, we found that we could actually get customers more efficiently in smaller markets. So most of the population, 80% of the population is in the top 25% of the U.S. So we went to the other parts of the U.S. So we kind of used a Walmart strategy.
Oh.
And I went across like the southeastern U.S. providing internet access to these smaller towns, but there was no competition.
Right.
So it was totally amazing.
Yeah.
And we had a great time doing it. It was really just something amazing. As an entrepreneur, and you're doing a startup, if you're doing any kind of business, whether you're a venture fund or not, when you get traction, it's that's where all the magic is. That's something you'll never forget. And that was the first time I ever got traction. I learned how it all works, and that's a big thing.
But how did you figure out that gold mine? Like, instead of focusing on main cities where the adoption of internet would have been much easier versus going to the remote areas where there is not much of an infrastructure available, or, you literally had to educate your customer base.
Yeah.
So that's a different route. But again, it's a gold mine. Once you are there, you're there.
Yeah, so we were there like before internet had really taken off. So this was like still America Online, but America Online was growing. It had started taking off. So although the people lived in smaller markets, they still watched the news, they still watched TV. Their kids might be at college, whatever it was. So they were picking it up, and they were interested because they were hearing about it. So there wasn't as big a lag as you would think there would be into the smaller markets. And we really figured out because we were getting inquiries from there. And so we started providing into those smaller markets. We saw that our cost to acquire, right? Our CAC was way lower. And the word of mouth would spread faster. So you'd go viral faster. So once you acquired, let's say, 1,000 customers in a market, you really didn't have to market anymore, because it would just start spreading. They started inviting us to user groups. We had people going there, and it was awesome. So to get to that critical mass in larger cities took a lot more people. So at that time, like, I think MindSpring was got to 500,000 just in Atlanta. Earthlink got to 500,000, maybe even 1 million in Los Angeles. There were a couple 100,000 subscribers with, I think, TAC in New York City, maybe a little bit more. So obviously starting in a bigger city would have been better, but I didn't know anything, and neither did my business partner. Right. So some of the lessons are, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So, right, what would I have done differently? I was like, well, I would have started in a major market.
Yeah.
But I'm still here, so
yeah,
it worked out.
That still stays the story.
Yeah.
So one question, when you mentioned that you went to these remote areas, and I think people were ready to adopt, but the pricing comes at a much, that's a critical part in the business when you go to remote areas versus the major cities. You have to price it accordingly, that the affordability gap has to, catch up on what you're providing, so that your subscriber base back then grew. And it was an internet service, so I think how did you, made the price structure work so that it is affordable, at the same time it, fetches you the enough revenue to sustain with the whole infrastructure?
So early on, that's a good question, because early on nobody knew how to price it. And if you recall, for people who are here, there used to be long distance charges. So you'd pay per minute to call long distance outside your local area. So at that time, people were used to metered pricing. For pretty much everything, and because businesses use the long distance during the day, it was more expensive during the day for long distance than at night. And so there were a lot of iterations to figure out what worked in terms of getting that product market fit, where it was really great. one of the things we found was that customers wanted the buffet model, right? They didn't want to pay per minute or per hour. So in the very first iteration, we included so many hours. Then we increased the hours that were included. Then we said, hey, evenings and weekends are free, but you have to pay for during the day, because we were just copying the long distance model. But it turned out it was more of a consumer product initially.
Yeah.
So it made no sense because most of the usage was at night. Right? So we had plenty of capacity during the day.
Okay.
So then it moved towards unlimited. So the industry kind of gyrated and shuffled and moved. And it wasn't that we had it all figured out in the first iteration, right? We gradually gradually got there. But there were like a number of trials and seeing what works. So I don't think that, I think it's pretty rare that you get it right on the first try.
Right,
So-
that's true. But how did you really start marketing? Because the first now we have a lot of channels through which we could, market, or we can create interest list, or even before you release your beta product, you could technically acquire the customer base, the warm customer base. But back then you have to build a product or have something very substantial that it would put it to use. And you don't know whether it will fail or it will sustain, or
Right.
whether you're doing it right or wrong.
Right.
And if you failed and the product value has gone down already, then going back again and selling to the similar customers or whatever, it becomes a difficult and it's a challenging in itself. So back then, how would the marketing look like for the technical or this kind of new coming technologies?
Well, we were super, super passionate, and we bootstrapped, so we didn't have any money. So a lot of it was we were doing presentations, word of mouth. As it kind of got traction and grew, then eventually we put billboards in smaller markets to make them aware that they could get internet now where they couldn't before. But it's a balancing act. We had a computer business that we were running, so it was paying the bills, and it gave us a little bit of a runway to figure out the internet side. And the internet was, as we got product market fit, the internet grew faster and faster. It had a compounding effect, right? So it starts off and it just starts accelerating, and it funded itself. So it was good. I mean, it's not just money, it's the technical challenge as well, right? Because since it's new, the products that you could buy to do an internet provider didn't exist yet. They existed several years later. There were companies like Livingston and US Robotics but at that time, none of those things existed because it was a new problem that hadn't been solved. So as an example, we were using Linux, which back then it was like heresy, because people were like, oh, it's not Windows, it's not professional.
Right.
And Linux wasn't even 1.0 yet. It was really, really primitive. And so what we had to do is, how are you going to run all these modems?
Right.
So what we ended up doing was we found there's a company called Rocketport that let you make multi-port serial cards. Most PCs only have 2 serial cards, but you could put up to 32 with each one of their cards. And those were made to drive printers. It wasn't even made for our use case, but we tried and we made it work.
Yeah.
So it was like, a lot of it is how you're putting together solutions to solve problems that you have today where there's not even a commercial solution yet, right? And it's not elegant because there's no way to be elegant, right?
Right.
And 2 or 3 years later, there was a product you could buy from, like I said, US Robotics or Livingston or whoever. Cisco had access servers. But those didn't come till later. So a lot of it is you have to make things up. You have to figure it out.
Right.
And I think that's really underrated. Everybody talks about kind of maybe the more sexy stuff or the obvious stuff that's hard, but it's also really hard to solve problems that have never been solved before.
Right.
Right. And it has to work, because there's a lot of stuff that's philosophically or in your head it's going to work, but in production,
Right.
that's the big joke, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So I see there were like a couple of unfair advantages you had, because the niche that you were exploring was a gold mine, first of all. And at the same time, there were not many who had proven their products or services to that extent. So I think it was a little bit of an unfair advantage that you had at that time. But at the same time, as I said, like the complex problems that you were solving was really a complex problem at that time that existed, and everybody was kind of experimenting. So coming to that experimental phase at that level was also something, it's also a talent and a smartness that both had to, come together to make it work, and that's what must have happened. But fast forward to that now we see the Atlantic.Net as a cloud hosting solution,
Right.
and having their own data centers. A lot of around 7 centers you have across the globe, spanning the major continents. So how this pivots happen, because with the internet provider services, web hosting solutions or whatever, and then having your own data center. So I see a great industry shift. Although you could play in the infrastructure base, but there were still the newer adoptions kept happening, and without raising the capital. Data centers, owning a data centers is not a joke. It requires a huge capital. So can somebody build that kind of a business? Bootstrapping is a question, and now many of us are looking forward for such answers, because now the VC money is shrinking unless you're not solving, as you said, the right complex problem. Back then, if you could have gone, you would have easily raised millions of dollars or billions of dollars. But now, because of a lot of infrastructure comes into the play, a lot of people are not gonna, give you the money, because unless you solve something very significant. So I think it's a time to understand how bootstrapping works, how the financial strategies behind works, to pivot and adapt to the newer technologies. And if you look at the technology, it's earlier it used to be a decade of a curve. Now it's 2 years, 5 years.
Yeah, it's going very fast.
So I'd like to know more on that, how if somebody is looking forward, how they should be at it.
Yeah, I would say that it's actually a lot easier. You have to look at things, I would say the right way to look at it is you have to be unorthodox. And what I mean by that is that everybody runs in one direction, and everybody kind of does things the same way, so you have to look at other ways to do things. How are you going to solve this problem? And it's very much like a technical problem, but you're just it's a business problem. And I'll give you an example. We had, and if you don't really need a lot of money, especially today, because there's so much money flooding space. If you're AI or security, either of those two categories, there's unlimited money going around right now. I think the last I heard, seed rounds for AI are up to 10 million now.
Yep.
Right? A seed round used to be $500,000 or 250 many years ago, and it was getting bigger, and there's up to 1 or 2, and now I think it's up to 10. That's a seed round. Which is really crazy. But the real magic of it all is you just use other people's money, right? It's not that complicated. And I'll give you an example. Early on, when we were building out into these smaller markets, there would be a competitor. There might be one competitor because they're small markets. So I'd prefer to take that because I don't want to have a dogfight, us advertising and stuff. So I'd say, hey, and usually they were it was somebody running out of their garage, or they had a computer shop, and it wasn't their real passion. They didn't have all the sites they didn't have the support, they didn't have all the stuff that I had built out. So I'd say, hey, I'm interested in buying you. Say, okay. So you would say, how would I afford to do that? And what was really important to the two of us, right? So this person wanted to maximize the amount of money they got. And so I said, okay, I will maximize the amount of money I give you, but in exchange, I'm going to have you finance it. And so what we did was we did an earn-out where I gave them all the profits for several years.
Wow.
And then whatever's left, I got, right? So
revenue share model is what you could say?
Yeah, it was it wasn't a revenue share because they got it all, right? They got all the profit other than the cost.
Yeah.
But the optionality of it was whatever's left at the end is mine. And any new customers I add, or any of their customers that referred new customers, were mine. So I didn't have to do any marketing because I had their user base that got me that organic growth.
Right.
And it worked out really well because people got way more than they should have.
Yeah.
Whether it was 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or whatever it was. And it worked out for me because I was able to build my business without putting up any money. So there's a lot of ways that you can be creative, and you have to be unorthodox. The problem is when you have access to money, you become lazy, right? If you have $1 million or $2 million in the bank, it's easy because you try to buy your way out of problems. And slowly what happens is you can die from the Nixon cuts, right? It's 1,000 cuts because you're spending 20K here, 50K here, and then eventually the money's gone. And your runway keeps getting shorter and shorter because the things you think are going to work may not work. So you really want to be unorthodox. There's so much goodwill in the industry for people who are actually doing things, and doing things in an unorthodox way, that you can go a pretty far away with almost no money. it's kind of amazing. It's actually much easier. It's much easier to start something now. It's harder to get traction because there's so much other money in space that if there's, whatever the white space is, people will throw 100 million to try to cover it, right?
Right.
To make sure that, so it's finding traction is harder, but getting involved or getting going or getting any resources you need are far, far easier.
Yeah.
And the social aspect of it has changed. I mean, the concept of a startup didn't exist when I started. It was just businesses.
Right, right.
So you're starting a business. It's like, this is
Yeah.
an internet business. You could be a dry cleaning business. They're just all businesses.
Right.
So there wasn't this idea of what a startup could be or what it was. Like the whole concept didn't exist. So the idea of having like $500,000 to start was like, who does that? Like, nobody can even comprehend numbers like that. Right.
Right.
So I actually think it's a lot easier today. I think that almost all the challenges entrepreneurs face today are in their own heads. It's that
I
either
think that's all
they don't
it
want to be intellectually honest with themselves. They want to put in the effort where they want to put in the effort, right? They'll be like, I want to sit behind a computer and code all weekend. But I'm like, yeah, but what you really need to do is you need to go outside and start talking to people. It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm not good with people.
Right.
Right? It's like, yeah, but that's what you need to do.
Right, me too, yeah.
And the neat thing about doing a startup, which is really important, this is super important, that most people don't get, is that when you do a business or a startup or anything like that, especially when you're doing it yourself and maybe you have a small team or maybe you have a co-founder, it's going to test you in every way possible.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you will be defeated by whatever you don't face. You have to become at least okay at everything. So if you say, hey, I don't like to sell, well, you're gonna have a sales problem. I don't like to deal with the accounting, you're gonna have a problem getting paid. Because you're not, at all the parts of you that you can avoid in real life, like if I go get a job and I program, I don't have to worry about any of this. Like, I never have to develop that part of me.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have a business and you're gonna do this, you have to develop all the parts of you that you don't want to develop.
Yeah.
And if you resist that, it will be very painful.
Yeah, it will come haunting you in that direction.
Yeah. whatever your weaknesses are all the problems you're gonna have. So you have to really understand that and do it head on. I didn't know how to sell, so I used to go to car dealerships and just watch how they did it. I didn't know where do I find a salesperson.
Right.
And maybe that wasn't the best way.
Yeah.
But I had no sales experience, and I didn't know anybody with sales experience.
So Marty, that was amazing strategy that we explored. But one more thing that I wanted to understand is you have been observing this whole internet market, starting with dial-up to moving to different segments, and now with everything is in an abundance available. How was that journey that you witnessed? When I started my career, which was in telecom domain, I remember we even built the usage based on the certain number of minutes to even the VoIP data, then PTT, everything separately. And then came a boom where everything is unlimited and there is just one data plan, and the billing complexity reduced and everything became easy. But you must have observed even prior to that, even capturing the data, even billing was not fitting in right. Sometimes the network would flood and not give the right data to you, if you are an internet service provider and you're billing your customers. So it was, lot of things were complex then, not that automated or streamlined. And you have witnessed this whole era of the service industry shifting. People did a lot of hard work back then, and now if you tell us, we are like, does that exist?
Yeah.
So we'd like to know about that. It's a very curious case to unfold, especially now for all of us who haven't seen what it was like before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something special because you know how everything works, right? Everything now is all about abstraction, going faster. Most software developers have never, I don't think they've been in a data center or actually seen the physical servers, right? And that's great because it's a level of abstraction and they can get to their app faster. But it's a problem because if you ask them, do you understand how a packet traverses from your server to the internet? And they'll say, no, I just, issue a command and I open a socket and it just goes, right? And that could make things difficult later on because if you don't know how any of it works, right? Like if you're running into a problem or you're having latency or jitter or whatever the problem is. So one of the nice things about starting early and kind of going through it all is I know how it all works. And And it's pretty interesting because there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that's improving, whether in data centers, whether it's cooling, or there's now liquid cooling is happening because the amount of heat that's being dissipated from GPUs, the amount of bandwidth that you need. We worked with a company, as an example, in the late 2010s called Mellanox. They're part of NVIDIA now. They're the backbone of their networking, and it was based on InfiniBand. So that was amazing, and that was amazing. It's still amazing today, and that was amazing 10 years ago. But a lot of people have no idea what that is, right? Unless you're actually working in the space. So there's there's InfiniBand, and now there's ROCE, which is RDMA over Converged Ethernet. But there's a lot of really neat things that are happening that aren't always visible, but it's super exciting. And the cool part about it is that those things create opportunities for me, especially because nobody else is watching, right? Yeah. So coming up with new ideas or new ways to present things or solving problems in a unique way, because if you know how it all works, you can come up with those things. If you don't, then you can't. But that's why I would say, if you're doing a startup, or even when you try things and they fail, you're learning along the way. You're learning a lot. You're learning what doesn't work. You're learning things that do work. And those kind of come back around later in life that you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
So
I think knowing a lot of things basic can, make your graph very excelling, because you know that beneath what basic things are there, So do you think that made innovating, that made Atlantic.Net innovating much better and at a right speed with the technology? Like when you saw that, the AWS started catering the cloud business, I mean, it was the first one to say that, we are going to rent back our servers this way, and then, a lot of things are going to be easier. And then a lot of giants followed. And of course, the Atlantic.Net also then, pivoted their entire business from whatever infrastructure you were in to the cloud. So, but there was a lot of gaps you had to catch up with that, industry was innovating. There were a lot of complex problems being solved, and you were a little bit behind, but you made sure that you're catching up. So how that the gaps, solving that gap, you look at, or how you innovate, or, make sure that you have to pivot at this point, looking at the industry shifts before even they come to the public era and, help basically tax your business.
I think one of the most important things, I'll say two things. If you have a talent that's a combination of two things that aren't typically put together, it's extremely powerful. So if you can code and you know accounting, or you know a specific industry and you can code, that's hugely valuable because it's so unique that almost nobody else can do that type of stuff. And you have a visibility and an angle and have insight that somebody who only codes will not have. So that's tremendously valuable. So I have a multiple amount of those things just from having done all these things for so long. So I think that's part of it. I think that the other thing about it is in technology, what makes it super fun is it's always changing, right? So even if you miss one shift, you can you could say, all right, well, if I miss that, I can always catch the next one. You just need to make sure you can survive the gap, but you can always be trying to do what's next. It's very, very important in technology, and I'm saying this because it's not just about the tech, is that almost this entire business is timing. So I always said it was like surfing, because there's a wave coming. If you get up too soon, it's not going to work. And if you miss the wave, so you can be a little bit early, but you can be a little bit early, but you can never be late. But you can't be way early either. There were technologies that were, I mean, you could even say InfiniBand was way, way early. I mean, they were pushing, Mellanox was pushing it in 2011, and only now are people, I would say even now, people are just realizing how important a lot of that tech is.
Right.
As an example, when you're building AI data centers, they draw so much power. I mean, the power requirements it's unbelievable. I mean, they're 100 megawatts, which is a lot. Like a traditional data center might be 5 or 20. Now they're building 1,000 megawatt, or they're trying to get to 1,000 megawatts. The problems you run into, the limitations you run into, are the utility companies can't give you that much power. They might say, I can give you 100 megawatts.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're buying power in dispersed areas, and they're combining it all into 1,000 megawatt project. But the problem with that is they're all spread out, so you have to have the networking to have it all talk to each other at a very high speed with low latency and all those things. And you can use some of these technologies I've talked about for that. But if those didn't exist, 10 years ago they've been working, they've been refining that all.
Right.
And so there's this like magical moment happening where it's become very, very relevant. But if you were a huge RDMA, and I'm saying this because this was us,
Right.
you had to compile the driver yourself. There was something called the OFED stack, and it was awful because it was really hard to get it running and have it stable. And so when we're Googling questions, the only things coming up are when you Google for answers, the only things coming up are stuff we posted. So like, nobody else is there. So that's way too early. But it's important, the timing is a big part of it. And like I said, as long as you're experimenting and learning, it pays dividends down the line. You just don't know it.
Is there any incident you would like to mention when you were pivoting to this cloud hosting solutions that help you realize how much you had to catch up, or what is the next thing you should be doing before everybody else is do it, based on your own experience, that made Atlantic.Net cloud hosting solutions are very powerful today? Because you're offering everything almost 50% off. When I went and I was checking with the salesperson with Atlantic.Net, I was blown away with the transfer data that you are giving an advantage, which many of the cloud solutions are not yet providing us. So for any startup, it is an essential to save the cost, and everybody is looking out. So how are you managing all this so that it structures in a way? Because I myself was exploring that solution, and that's where I stumbled upon this, and I was really understanding how only these people can do better transfer or give us this abundance of transfer for this much of cost versus the others. What is it that differently you're doing that we don't know, and I mean many other cloud solutions should be looking forward to, or we can say it's an unfair advantage again to the Atlantic.Net in terms of having the compliance and everything is a standard, but on top of it, you're giving something that is so lucrative to startups or any small technology businesses that they will not move away.
Yeah.
So how are you making these combinations work?
Well, you have to remember when Amazon was launching AWS and it was going for a very long time, everybody's like, why are you doing it? Amazon's losing money. It's terrible. How are you going to compete? Blah, blah, blah. And when we did the math, it's like there's no way they're losing money on this. And of course, later on, it came out because once they started to break out the financials, they're like, okay, we have 30-40% margins. So you have to think for yourself. But one of the insights we had, and this is once again from experience and going and talking to people and trying to understand, why do you use Amazon? Why do you use Azure? Didn't exist yet, or why do you do it yourself, or however you do it. One of the things you realize is that there's not one size fits all. So it's very much like restaurants. So you might have a very fancy restaurant, and then you have McDonald's on the other side, right? And there's a use case for both, right? So in the case of, if you're just trying to get to work and you need to pick something up very quickly, McDonald's is a great product market fit for that. But you're not going to take a client there that you're trying to to schmooze, right? You take them to the fancy place. So it turns out that because of the size of the market, there's a lot of different use cases. And so you don't have to, Amazon can't be everything to everybody, or any cloud, right? Microsoft can't be everything. They can be something very important to some people. Microsoft's great in the enterprise, as an example, because they have a huge enterprise base. But because of that, they can't be great for, let's say, mid-sized companies, because that's not their sweet spot. So it's understanding when there's a really huge market as cloud is and as going to be, and now there's neo clouds like CoreWeave's about to go public, or they filed to go public. There's a lot of opportunity, but you have to have some idea that there is an opportunity, right? If you think that it's, I can't do it, the money is, it never makes the biggest competitors don't make money, and how will I source? You could talk yourself out of anything, right? You can talk yourself out of any a good situation. And once you get going, you find all kinds of problems. I mean, there's an unlimited amount of problems in pretty much all of life. Like when you sit back, you're like, you just see how many problems there really are, and you just need to solve them for people. And it's super important to remember. I would say remember, this was one of my insights early on in my business career. What is that people are more lazy than they are cheap. So you're always worried about price and all these other things, but what people really want is they want everything to be easier, and they'll pay for that, right? And that's why we don't cut our own hair, right? Like, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh,
so,
what a great insight that you just made.
yeah. So it's really important to understand that, people can do it themselves. I'll give you another example. I just met yesterday with an integrator, a PC integrator, and we were talking about things, and I said, he's talking about all the things he does for the customer to make sure that when he ships the servers, they work, because there's a huge, sometimes, if he gets 1,000 servers, 70 will be broken. And he said, there's a lot of price pressure in this industry and blah, 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 blah. So I said, yeah, and so he's like, so I said, why do people buy from you? He's like, well, because it just works. And I said to him, that's what you need to be selling. You're not selling the server. You should be charging more, because if you go to the customer and say, what does it cost you when one of these servers doesn't work? I mean, it's at least $500. At least, between their IT people, lost productivity, whatever. It's probably way more than that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying conservatively. So how much more would these companies pay you? What's the premium to ensure I'm not going to have problems when I get the servers, they all run, or when I get the equipment that the accounting department isn't going to have any problem, because all these business processes get hold up if things aren't working. And he's like, yeah, I need to change my sales process. But I'm saying, but the problem is you're selling this amazing solution for your customers, but you're not conveying the value, and then you're trying to sell against more of a generic price model. So you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So, and if you're the customer, if I explain this to you, you're like, yes, I want that. I want to give you my money because I want you to solve this pain point for me. I want you to make my life easier. And so it's kind of amazing, right? There's so many opportunities that people have. I don't know if they have a dogmatic view or they just don't see it. There's tremendous opportunities today that solve so many problems for people, and people want to give you their money. They want to give you margin, but you have to ask for it. You have to present it in a way that people understand what it is you're selling. And a lot of people, especially in tech, have no idea what they're selling.
Right.
They're in outer space, right?
Yeah, I think that's a different art and a skill in itself. But I think you opened up on a wonderful point that many of us are so I think most founders are blindfolded because they are very focused on solving the problem. So the other aspects of business are, it does happen that way, that they are blindfolded to those sides, but somebody has to come on the stage to tell them okay, this is a side that we should be focusing on. And so the Atlantic, when Atlantic.Net, when you started on the cloud hosting solutions, you figured out what is exactly your niche, or what is your ace points, and those are the ace cards you started flipping around, and that's how you could acquire bigger customers. And that is also a growth in itself that we are observing. Now the Quakes, the entire San Jose Earthquakes is hosting it on the Atlantic.Net, and it's a wonderful success stories to hear about. So what are your plans going further? What do you see in the next 5 years or 7 years down the line? How the industry is going to shift? What is your take on it?
Well, it's obviously the exciting thing right now is the shift to AI, right? And on the back end, the exciting part about the shift to AI is it's completely reinventing the idea of the data center, how it all works, because the cooling is different, the density is different, the rate of change is dramatically different. So as an example, if I buy an NVIDIA GPU today, how long does it last? Because if the next one's coming out in a year or two, the rate of innovation is so fast, you need to make sure you're making a profit. I think that there's going to be such a big shift if the question right now is there's this huge capex, right? This big build out, and the revenue is trailing, it's following, it's coming, but it's not there yet to justify the spend. So I think that if it's going to work, the whole concept of AI is going to change. Agentic AI. It's really amazing stuff. So it's just all amazing. I don't know how else to say.
Yeah.
You've got AI. It just looks at your eye and it can tell if you have dementia. You're going to have like an agentic AI in an ambulance, for example. So you go in an ambulance, it scans you, and it can see things that maybe a human can't. And then it's talking to the agentic AI in the emergency room. So when you show up, those two are cooperating to figure out the most optimal path of care for you. to minimize,
Right.
whatever trauma you would have experienced. Where we're doing that by hand and manually and guessing. So, I mean, it's going to change everything. Like it's going to be like science. I mean, I really believe that if this has legs and it works and I don't know the path that's going to get there. I mean, they're going to put us in history as like the Stone Ages, right? Because they're like these people used to do all these things themselves, right? Like in the way we look at people from the 1900s, they're going to put us in that same group, right? This is going to be the cutoff point where it's like, okay, they started figuring out how to get, use AIs or use these tools to do things better or faster or just amazing stuff. Like it looks like science fiction.
It
really looks like science fiction. It's amazing.
So I think when the Matrix had released that time, nobody had thought this could happen, but now we can relate to it much more easily versus, people who must have watched at the time of that release. People were like, we don't understand this movie. But now if you go and watch it, it feels like, oh, it's just going to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing time to be alive. It's in some ways, it's kind of like when I was there, we were there for the internet, and we're like, if it happens, like we think it's going to happen, it's going to change everything. Just like when you saw the iPhone, and everybody saw it, and you're like, you got it right away. It's like, it's going to change everything, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of the same thing. It's like, it's going to reinvent so much of life, which will create new problems, but it'll solve other problems. And it's exciting because 10 or 20 years from now, like I have young kids, 10 or 20 years from now, one is that when I look back, it's like we were there before this all happened. But even more important, it's like, what'd you do? It's like I was involved in it. It's a wild, wild west. This is like, you're at the, beginning of something potentially amazing, right? And to be part of it and to be like part of history of where this goes is like it's amazing. It's like being there like when the steam engine is being built or something like. It's like.
So Marty, we'll get into a lot of rapid fire questions and advice. But before that, I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for on the International Women's Day, being an immigrant woman, the woman of a color. I got to represent on a bigger stadium and truly feel like I'm one of them. And it is a lot of honor that you, being the Atlantic.Net founder, CEO, or the company, gave me to represent on that day. And really, my Quakes is my home team, and I'm like very much rooting for it. We have seen there a lot of matches coming into this stadium. But it was really an honor to me that Atlantic.Net presented, and I'm really thankful for that. And I also know that you, Atlantic.Net, are supporting many other businesses in different sectors, and for that you have a lot of lucrative offers to begin with. The way many of the cloud providers are giving startups certain free credits or certain things, that way you also have structured different packages, and there are different ways that you're giving back to community.
Right.
So I want to touch that angle because I, being a community builder, I'm very most of the time I'm drawn to those people,
Right.
and somehow they come.
Yeah.
So the Atlantic.Net is also doing a lot of initiatives, and want to know how they are contributing, being a technology company, and making others foster.
Yeah, I mean it's something that's very personal for me because obviously I started and it was very lonely. It's a very lonely, arduous journey. So when I see other people taking the risk, being a founder or trying to start something is a very, very special thing. It's something kind of amazing, and not a lot of people say they want to do it, but not a lot of people can do it.
Right.
So we try to do whatever we can to help. We have obviously we have some free tiers, like the big guys. We throw in a lot of free services so that there's not a lot of cost, so people can test, they can scale, support a lot of different groups. I'm happy that you had that Women's Day thing. That's exciting. Because in terms of supporting everybody that's coming up or everybody that's trying to do things, because it's not easy. It's really, really hard, and people don't really appreciate it. We only see the winners, right? And everybody celebrates the winners, but what about all the people who've tried? And they're on their way still, right? Whatever that means. And the neat thing about being a founder is it's so personal. It's so personal, right? Like to this Women's Day, that's a feather in your cap you always have, and it has meaning to you. some people, you want to become a giant company. That's great. Some people want to help other people. That's more important, right, than making as much money as possible. And you can do that as a founder. You can make it whatever you want it to be. You can influence the world in a positive way, however you want. So we want to be involved with people who are trying to do that. And honestly, there's really not a lot of people that are doing it. And what I mean by that is, I'll go to a conference and I'll go to a different conference that's sort of unrelated or parallel. It's the same people. I'll run into the same people.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's the probability I would run into this person at these two different conferences? And so you really realize there's a small set of people in the world that make everything happen.
True.
And so to be around other people that are like that, like we all get each other, because if you're somebody like this, life is hard because most people aren't this way, right? Most people are very 9 to 5. They're, they live very standard lives. So to be surrounded or be with other people that are like my people, they get it, right?
Yeah.
And because people watch it and when you're doing startup stuff and it's hard, and people are like, why do you do that to yourself, right? It's so hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the hard is what makes it great. Like when it works, there's nothing else like it. So I'm excited if I can help other people be successful and find their way and accomplish what's really meaningful to them in life, whatever that is, right? They can make $1 billion, that's great. But hopefully in a way that's positive to the world.
So I'd like to know, what are you offering? So, if somebody is out there as an aspiring entrepreneur, if somebody is looking forward to innovate with the technology and they are looking for affordable solutions initially to go with.
Right.
So what is that, why they should be coming to the Atlantic.Net? That's the
Well,
question.
the big difference between us and the big guys is that we really are focused on customer success and user success. So if you're trying to do something new, you can reach out to us. We can besides the free credits, we can say, all right, do we need to put you in touch with other people we know that might be able to help you, or you might be able to help them, or you can come together. There's a huge network. There's a huge network effect. So it's not just the technology. It's listening to you, understanding what your challenges are, and saying, how can we help you be successful? Because if you're successful, over time we'll be successful. And more importantly, we can introduce other people that are trying to be successful to you once you've made it. So, and there's like a general feeling of goodwill. It's a special thing. So we want to work with people who are trying to change the world, make things happen in whatever way is important to them. And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's not just free credits. It's not just the connections. It's not just. Sometimes it's just, look, we get it. We get it's hard. Sometimes we have customers as an example during COVID. They're in the hotel industry where we said, okay, they're like, look, we're dead, right? And we said, all right, we were like, okay, can you pay half? They're like, no. I was like, all right, well, we just gave them free service for as long as we could.
Wow.
For a period of time. We couldn't do it forever.
Yeah.
But these were customers that had been with us a long time, and it was a sad situation. And so it's things like that. It's just this feeling of goodwill. So if somebody's trying something, they can reach out. We can work with you. We can understand what your needs are, and basically, I think the thing that really differentiates us is that the probability of our customer success, whether it's an end user just running an IT app or if it's a startup, goes dramatically up because we are trying to push to make it happen, right? Whether it's customer acquisition or whatever it is, we can introduce you to the right person that can partner with you to help get your product out there. That's really great too. So that's what we do.
Wow,
right?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Because being an infrastructure company, I'm sure you have all the angles covered. If somebody is looking forward to, then I think it's a great solution to look forward to, and that's what we are looking at. If you are someone who is looking out for great cloud hosting platforms and looking out for certain needs, and if you know what your metrics are going to look like, then I think then you can get the transparent idea, which one to pick.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's stumbling upon, then probably just having a discussion won't work. But I think it's a great idea to try these kind of solutions which are in it, focused on certain industries. And I think being an infrastructure company, you have a good leg room to spread across. But then the others who are, on the other side, who are building service industry or the products which are very much consumer oriented or whatever, they have that small wiggle room. So I think it's a great giant company which can fetches you a lot of potential customers. That's what
Yeah.
I can look forward to that. Yeah. Now we'll go back to rapid fire, and then
Okay.
of course then a great advice question from you.
All right.
So as we always ask on our podcast, there is one book we ask as a recommendation.
Yeah.
Since you have been in this industry, in the tech, in the different innovation, and it's a lot of complex studies that everybody has to do in being in infrastructure industry to us particularly. So what is that one book that you recommend for other entrepreneurs if they're looking forward to scale up and sustain for a longer time in the business?
I think the most important book, it's almost, I mean, it's really good. It's foundational, I would say, is Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. And the book basically talks, there's a lot in there, I can't really say it. But the fundamental idea of it is that to understand what is random and what really matters. So sometimes people can be successful just purely by luck. And then people say, well, it's, like as an example, if I ate a pancake, the guys that started Google ate pancakes every day for breakfast. And then later on they becomes Google, and then people say, well, the answer is you need to be eating pancakes, right? And it doesn't,
Yeah.
that's the problem, you're not eating enough pancakes.
Yeah.
So it's really to understand how much randomness there is and to separate randomness from all the noise of life from what really matters and not get caught up in that, because it's really, really confusing otherwise. Because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a startup, if you're really doing anything, everybody's going to give you advice, and the problem is most of it's not even bad, because if it was bad you could just do the opposite. It's random, so half of it's good and half of it's bad, and so it's just
Right.
it's all just random. And it talks a lot about fragility versus robustness. And then that's a decision you have to make. So as an example, fragility meaning you might grow faster, but you're going to build something that's much more fragile, that if the underlying assumption you've made have changed, it could all crumble very quickly. That's okay if you're venture funded and you need to grow, like I can grow much faster if I opt for fragility. And that might be okay. That's the trade-off you make. I did robustness, so I don't have a lot of leverage, right? So that if there's a downturn, I can survive. But the trade-off of that is that maybe I could have grown much faster in different cycles,
Right.
or I could have. So there's not a right answer. It's what's important to you. Is it more important for you that you build something that's durable or sustainable, or is it more important for you, like, look, this is a 5-year run for me. I'm trying to get this thing, get an exit, and move on with my life. And so it's a really good book to make you think about how to think.
Interesting. I'm
Yeah.
gonna pick that book
You should.
next.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. The next question I have, because you have been operating 2 decades and over, started from the college dorm, acquired your first customer, and even now like acquiring the bigger and bigger customers in the markets. What is that one mistake that really taught you the business key strength or whatever, that gave you that good shift to do the business in the right way?
I think the thing I learned was that most people make decisions based on fear. Like you're afraid to do something, you're afraid. So the biggest thing I did, I learned to face my fear. And most of the time, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's in your own head, right? Like when you have to go on stage or anything like that, you have the fear in your head, the mind games that you play with yourself, right? It's like the lies you tell yourself are the worst. So I think the biggest thing is to realize, like, whenever I'm afraid of something, then I go for it. I go for all the things I'm afraid of.
Wow.
Because then I'm not afraid of them anymore. I've faced my fear. So I face, and that's not just in business, like anything in life. If I'm fearful of something, I recognize it and I try to hit it head on. Where most people, I think, find they tell themselves that they might be facing, but they're not really. They lie to themselves, like, okay, I'm going to face it, but maybe tomorrow, or next week. I'll deal with it next week. I'll put it off. I'll do this. So most people don't allow themselves to face their fear, and because of that, they don't fully develop. And then they get stuck with that monkey on their back that I can't do something because they never conquered their ability to do things head on. And maybe it's not going to be a great outcome, but you didn't
Yeah, you sabotage yourself from conquering the opportunity or creating an opportunity.
Yeah, I can't.
For you,
I think
maybe.
90% of it is people sabotage themselves, right? They talk themselves out of really great outcomes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy when you think about it, right? Because you
Yeah.
think, well, why would people do that? But I mean, you see it every day. So
Now that you pinch on your fears, like I like to know what is that one adventure that you did by, when you know that you're like, just can't do it. But then you have decided to face the fear and you've jumped off the cliff.
man,
like,
I had
is that?
so many fears. I had so many. So there's like
One
three
adventure,
times.
like-
Okay, let me think. There's 3 times like when we had started the business. I mean, I was on the floor crying because I thought I had really ruined my life. We had. I mean, which fear should I say? Like, I'm trying to think. Which fear was really scary? I mean, the scariest one was starting the business because we didn't know. I didn't have. Me or my business partner didn't know anything about business. We didn't have any family members that had businesses. My parents didn't want me to do it. His parents didn't want him to do it. I mean, it's totally, and it's not like now where startup, is kind of being is sexy,
Right.
or it's
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
or
it's
it's
cool,
trendy.
yeah.
When it was back then, it was like,
A big no.
yeah,
Straight
like what
no.
do you? Nobody's like, who's doing this, And I mean, I couldn't even, could I? Yeah, I couldn't even drink at that point. So
No.
when we started, I mean, so we'd go to like a business conference. Have it, like I can't even go to the open bar.
Really?
Yeah, so
Oh.
because I wasn't 21 yet. So I think that was, for me, like I remember that moment where we were sitting there trying to decide if we're going to do it or not, and we were really on the fence, and it was, and I say it's scary because it's you don't even know what you don't know, right? Like everything, like how do you even open a business? What licenses how many business licenses do I need? I don't even know. Like how do I pay rent? How do I open a business bank account? How do I do anything? So everything, I mean, and then nobody else has ever done it. So, and I'm in college, it's like, well, you can just finish and just have a normal life. Like, you don't need to do any of this, right? It's not like you're desperate or destitute or anything. So
Yeah, but who does that in college? I mean, very few. I mean, you would rather enjoy the college life, have a good job.
yeah, I mean, but we saw the internet was going to happen, right? With or without us. So it's like if we don't jump, it'll be too late by the time, but I mean, the thing in tech is by the time there's, books written about how to do something, it's already over, right? Like,
Right.
The opportunity's moved on. So when you're on the frontier, which is what I enjoy, nobody's ever done any of this stuff. Well, even now, I'm here at this NVIDIA conference, right? And all the big clouds are all saying like, it's not working how we thought it was going to work, right?
Right.
I mean, their marketing will tell you it is, but that we have it all figured out. But the guys that are actually doing it is like, no, it doesn't work anyway how we thought it was going to work. We're still figuring it out. Like the way we built it 2 or 3 years ago is totally wrong. We're changing how we're building it, and we're learning along the way. So to be at that phase, right, where everybody thinks it's all figured out, but nobody really has any idea, is kind of
Right.
fun. So, but that, I mean, it's really, really. I don't know if fear is even the right word. It's like, what am I doing?
Lost.
And it's not working right away. So then you're like, oh my God, did I ruin my life, right? And at that time when a year of your life is a big part when you're 20. So, and your friends are graduating, are moving on and going to their jobs, and you're like, and it didn't work right away. I mean, it took us a couple years to really
Right.
like where it started.
Yeah, it takes time.
And along the way, there's 2 or 3 times, like I said, I was on the floor crying because I thought I had ruined my life.
Wow.
Which are some crazy stories, but it's all scary and nobody talks about it and everybody acts like everybody fakes it, but it's like everybody knows it's terrifying. I mean, if you're not terrified, you're doing something wrong. Right? It's like, what does Mario Andretti say? Right? If you feel like you're under control, you're not going fast enough. That's really how it is.
I love that
Yeah, it's fun.
authenticity coming out.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to business, what will you pick between two, a fast-paced growth or steady profitability or stability?
Well, I mean, in Fooled by Randomness, it kind of addresses this. And I always chose robustness, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's slow growth. You can be robust and grow very quickly, but usually those opportunities are going to be very different in different times than other people. So you might be capitalizing on a period of time when there's a downturn where cost to acquire customer is very low, and since you're around, you're there to capture it all. And that's what happened with, as an example, GoDaddy. GoDaddy, the guy that founded it, he was down to his last. I mean, he had lost all his. He had sold his prior business. He was down. I think he had like 20 or 40 million, and he was down to his last couple million. And he's like, what do I do? It's not working. What do I do? I was like, I've lost all this money. I could. He's had the story. He's like, he's sitting in a restaurant. He's like, I could have bought this restaurant. And what happened was the .com crash happened. The cost to acquire a customer tanked because he was the only one that was spending real money. Everybody else was using their venture funded money. And then he got traction with GoDaddy. It took off, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and
So-
even now a lot of trading happens on GoDaddy.
Yeah.
The latest one from you heard about the chat.com, right? It's a big transaction.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that here's this thing that it worked. And if you think about it, there's a lot of companies, Uber, right? Uber, Airbnb, those two worked in what made them go was the financial collapse, because that's when people are like, I can't get a job, so I'll drive Uber, or I don't want to lose my house, I'm going to rent out a room.
Yeah.
So sometimes in the worst times, it creates the best opportunities.
Yeah.
But in the worst times, you have to be robust enough to be there to take them, right?
Right.
If you're fragile and let's say you're venture funded and you're taking down rounds, you're getting diluted, it's not working, and you've run out of runway, you're not there. You're there, but you can't take advantage of the opportunity because you're too fragile.
Right.
So I don't think that being robust necessarily means slow growth. I think that's a misnomer. I think it's a misnomer because I think that's just something that is not accurate.
Yeah. And between the VC funding and the bootstrapping, if you had to go back and start all over, what you would have
Well,
opt
I mean,
for?
the VC industry is very different now than it was back then. Like I said, it's very personal. I'm trying to think of. I didn't know what I was doing. Like now, when you're going venture funding, you already have so many things figured out, or at least here's what I'm going to do. Here's my value prop. You may not have the business model figured out, but you have a much better idea. I mean, when we started, we were starting with this idea of internet. It's like, how do you even make an internet service provider? There's so many other problems. Like I didn't even have that part done. Like I'd have to at least have some kind of plan. Like, okay, this is how I'm going to build my internet provider.
Right.
I had no idea how to even do that. So I don't think I could have gone to a VC and who would I hire to do it? Or I guess I could have hired some engineers or something, but it was just a different mindset back then. It wasn't something that was available to me.
Yeah. I think that to many of you, it wasn't available back then.
Yeah.
And even now, many parts of the globe is still not, aware about this kind of world that exists. But if you look at their businesses, they are like actually doing something very good. They are having good traction since the day one, and their mindset is acquiring the customers or things like that versus, derailing their focus. So I think everything works. I mean,
at the end of the day, if you get traction, however you do it, that's all that matters, right? Traction is everything. So if you have it, whether you're venture funded, you're bootstrapped. If you're bootstrapped, you'll figure it out. Maybe you'll take VC. If you're venture funded, you're going to be able to raise more money and keep going with less and less dilution or whatever. So the real name of the game is, figure out your model, get traction, and win. It's not. It sounds so simple, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
But that's all there really is. So there's no wrong answer. I don't have anything against people getting venture funded. I think it's great, and I think it makes a lot of sense in many ways.
Yeah.
And if you want to bootstrap, that's okay too. That it's harder, but all roads kind of lead to the same place if you get traction. I mean, because look, once you're at 10 or 20 million as a bootstrap, you have the cash flow to fund it. To be your own VC at that point, right? Because you're generating enough cash flow.
That's what you did.
Yeah. So anyway. So it's just, you might say, well, maybe it's going to take longer, but it's like, but maybe you're getting other things out of it along the way.
So are you thinking about being an angel investor to other businesses now?
I have done some. I'm not, I don't want to really put it out there because, otherwise I'm going to get you'll get overwhelmed. It's really hard being an angel because all the ideas sound fantastic. Right? I don't know which is, I can't tell you. I mean, when somebody pitches me, I'm like, that sounds great. That sounds great. I rarely hear one that sounds bad. So I don't even know. I mean, obviously they do fun, people put into a whole bunch because nobody else knows either, right?
Right.
And you hope, one or two are going to work out.
Yeah, 2% generally is
So,
Okay, interesting to
open to
know.
it, yeah.
So if somebody wants to hit back and check,
Yeah, I
they're,
mean,
they're ready to rule their.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they can always reach out and
Okay.
let me know.
So now we'll come back to an interesting question and a wonderful meat question that I say in the podcast. We ask a lot of advices from our guests. It could be for aspiring entrepreneurs. It could be for something related to the passionate business or passionate change-making things that they're doing. Your passion was in something very solid infrastructure way, starting with the internet services to what you are now. Over the years, many businesses must have witnessed downturns, and in the downturn, many have shut down and have pivoted totally to a different industry. But when I look at your growth, it was a very consistent and in the same industry moving in a right shape. So you had an exponential graph in the right niche, and you haven't derailed from that. So it's a example to witness for me, and that from that angle I have a question for all the entrepreneurs out there. Being passionate about solving certain problems and pivoting in the same space, and achieving that stability. What is that one advice that you'll give so that somebody can grab into that advice and they know, like, when things go wrong, this is the thing you should be clinging on to and moving.
Yeah, I think that, look, things are always going wrong. That's the joke we always say. It's when you're doing a startup or really running a business, but more so if you're in the startup, it's just the calm between the chaos, right? It's like you have calm, and then this is going wrong. But things are always going wrong. But I think it's to accept that that's just how it is, right? You have to be able to understand that. Okay, this is part of the process, and not panic. Like I said, most entrepreneurs shoot themselves in the foot for whatever the reason. Whether they don't want to face their fear of whatever they have to do. That, like, you need to get rid of people. Right, you've got a problem. You have to cut your team. It's like, well, I don't want to fight. Somebody be like, well, I'm not good at firing people. Like, nobody's good at firing people. Nobody wants to do it. Right. So then they put it off. They're like, let me see if I can turn things around. Now they have less runway. So now your optionality of things you can do are less because you have less in the bank, and now you have to do it anyway. So you don't want to back yourself into a corner. And then why do you back yourself into a corner? Because you're afraid. So I would say, like I said, you need to face your fear and don't be your own worst enemy, and I mean, and there's all kinds of ways that you can get yourself in trouble. Just not even from a business point of view. There's a lot of people that, like, you can become an alcoholic because it's so stressful. You start drinking, and I've seen that where people there's other dysfunctions that can happen because it's really hard, right? And there's nobody else to talk to, and nobody really understands what you're like. Everybody thinks you're nuts, right? So I would, just like I said, I would say, just, I tell my kids, I guess this is the advice I give. I tell my kids, both my kids, I was like, if there's one piece of advice I could ever give my kids, I was like, if there's only one thing I could tell my kids, what would it be? And this is super, super important. This is the most important advice I can give you. So this is the advice I give my kids, and it's the main thing is that don't take life too seriously and make sure you have fun. And if you just remember that, it'll get you through pretty much everything. Because when it's horrible, it's like, okay, just don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
And make sure along the way you're having fun. Like, don't get caught up. If you're just caught up in, having to raise money or having to let people go or having to, make sure you get it to a place where you're having fun some way. Don't make it into something that's just killing you.
Yeah. I think that's a good advice, because along the way you have to put together certain acts which are just not right for you, but probably right in point of time, and that's how the businesses, have to balance out their scales, and some scales have to be real at that point of time, and the others have to go down. So I think that's a great advice. But I have one question, which is something I've not thought about. Since you were right out of the college, or during the college, you established a business, and just two of you couldn't have foster what we see today. So you must have done a lot of hires. But doing the first hire at that age, when a lot of rocket science was not so normal to you that time, how did you made an attempt to hire your first executive in any of the functions that you were struggling the most?
Yeah, I would say the first hire we did was a bookkeeper, because I didn't know much about accounting. In terms of balance sheets, I didn't understand what's the income statement versus the balance sheet versus the statement of cash flows. Like, I have no idea I didn't understand why you even needed those things. So our first was getting a controller, and it was a lady. And I think the first hire you should do is the first hires, I should say, you should do are people who complement you. So if you're a strong coder, don't get another strong coder unless you really need it, if you're falling behind. You need to find somebody that complements you. Like, wherever you're weak and you have to make an assessment of yourself, you want to hire people that fill you in, right? Fill in the gaps that you are creating. So I didn't know anything about accounting. I mean, we were doing it, in a very, rudimentary way. So we got a, controller, bookkeeper. I guess we were so small at that point. But I learned a lot from her, because I'd be like, why do we do it this way? Why is it that way? And because she had come from industry, she knew all the normal processes, and that's super, super valuable.
Right.
In terms of because what's industry standard, what's acceptable, what's all of these things that we didn't know. Like, if we're going to give somebody terms, who should we give terms to? Like, I was in the beginning, I would just give terms to people. Oh, the guy seems like a nice guy. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to do a credit check and make sure they pay their bills first. So, but these are things I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So if you make a kind of an assessment of yourself, like where you have gaps or where you might be doing it but you're not the best, those people can level you up in those areas. So now you have less and less holes in terms of white space that you need to fill in. So I think the mistake people make is they hire a friend that especially they have skills that are very similar and they have the same weaknesses, and then you're kind of doubling down. On
everything that you have.
On everything, because now you both don't know accounting, let's say, right? which was the case with me and Jose. Right? But I would say that's the best way, and that you just make a personal judgment call on that.
Well, it was wonderful to have you, Marty. And I think it was a lot of unconventional things that I heard today. Like, I didn't know how the acquisitions could go, even in tech industry, the way the other business routes are, opting. And if you look at the other industries are still successful, have a good cash flow versus tuning down much faster down the runway. But I really like the way you club together the orthodox and unorthodox thinking to, have this sustainable business and pivoting multiple times along the way, starting with the dial-up to what we see the cloud hosting solutions. It's a big jump to witness all along the way. So much of learnings in terms of technology versus the breadth also was different, right, in all the way. And operating from Florida, that was unusual case to see. And now acquiring all these Silicon Valley's customer, it's a good success story that I'm witnessing.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the honor that you have given me, and enjoying this press room in San Jose Earthquakes, my home team's office. It's I don't have any more words to say, but all the way thank you to you. But any other words for us and for our community? What do you think?
Thanks for having me, and I wish you whatever success you can have, and for the people that are trying and making it happen. I mean, it's not an easy journey. It's hard. Nobody says it. It's really hard, and it's terrifying, and there's going to be tough times along the way. And but you're not alone. Everybody has to do it, right? Everybody's gone through it. And I hope somebody listening finds some kind of solace. If you're stuck, if you're doing great, wherever you're at, and I hope that something amazing happens for your listeners.
Yeah.
And something awesome happens.
Yeah, they do come back.
Okay.
I have some good success stories coming back and talking about that person talk about this. I think it really helped me, and this has happened, and many other are looking forward to. So for me, it's like even the one life change. It's a great success story for me to witness with whatever efforts that we're putting in together.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah.